now we're moving into the investment portion of the Green Moustache. And basically, everybody I'm sure knows why you're here. We're here to learn from these two incredible women all about nutrition, and hopefully to also hear about what the next steps are for the Green Moustache and what we plan on doing with this race that we're doing. So I started the Green Moustache 5 years ago. We now have 7 locations. We have the next one set to open December 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, one of those days we're hoping. Ellen's in the back there, that's going to be her location in Port Moody, which is very, very exciting. So we'll be, we'll be in the east, we are in the west, and we are slowly growing across BC and into Alberta. Next slide. Yeah. So our goal is to really bring a nutritional renaissance. So what does that mean, a renaissance? It is fundamentally shifting the way we do everything when it comes to food. So all of the ideas that you heard tonight in that panel, we're trying to activate that, enable that, and really step it up, because unless we have a lot of active players in the community, these health hubs like the Green Moustache in different communities, where people can come together, be part of a tribe, and have these conversations and share this knowledge, then we're not going to see this nutritional renaissance take place. And it's critical because right now we have such a prevalence of lifestyle diseases. When I say lifestyle diseases, that's about 97%. So it's, science studies will show anywhere from 90 to 97% of diseases are actually not genetic. And a lot of people think that, oh, well, my grandparents had heart disease, my dad died of heart disease, I'm on heart meds, so therefore it must be genetic. But often we live exactly the same lifestyles as our parents and our grandparents did. Everything is out of habit. We learned from, our cooking ways from them. If you use canola oil in your fridge, it's probably because your parents used it in their fridge as well. Like, why would you buy, avocado oil, or why would you not cook with salt if your parents did that, because that's the habit that it created. So we're going to go jump next slide. So what is scary? People come up to me and they say, why does it feel like everybody around me has cancer? And the reason is because literally everybody around you has cancer. 1 in 2 people now get diagnosed with the disease. When I started presenting this about 10 years ago, it was 1 in 2, actually back then it's about 1 in 1.67 for men and 1 in 1.83 for women are diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. And so right now in the United States, there's 111 million people living with cancer right now. Like, that's 1/3 of the population currently right now is living with cancer. But even more have had cancer and they're still alive right now. And then not to mention the number of deaths. And those same statistics are identical for Canada as well. 1 in 4 people are currently living with at least 1 chronic degenerative disease. If you have 1 chronic degenerative disease, chances are you have 2 or 3 or 4. Whether it's migraines, infertility, psoriasis, autoimmune disorders, it doesn't have to be the big ones, like the big 3, like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, but there's hundreds of other chronic diseases that people are living with, and it wasn't this way 60 years ago and 50 years ago. It was actually in about 1986 that we saw this tremendous rise in chronic degenerative disease, and it was attributed to the use of pesticides and herbicides in farming and glyphosate as well. So we talked about how conventional food is eroding our soil, our water, our air, our environmental systems, and that needs to be cleaned up. The earth can't sustain it. Our industrial meat farming practices actually create more pollution that contributes to climate change than every single vehicle on the planet and the emissions that they put out, which is absolutely absurd how we've allowed meat, where 100 years ago, a Canadian family would eat 1 pig in an entire year. That's it. Now people are eating like tens of pounds of that. Like, it's absolutely insane how many meat products people are consuming on a daily basis. And you might not be doing that, but let me tell you something, you're not the norm. Okay? You are part of that small group of people that have already decided to make the change, and really it's up to you to share that information with others and also show them how food is medicine as well, right? By doing it yourself, and then people can live through you and your experiences. So Modern medicine is another thing that is now, I think a lot more people are aware that, okay, you know what? We spend billions of dollars on our healthcare system to have this many people living with chronic diseases that medicine cannot solve. There's no pharmaceutical drug on the planet that doesn't have side effects and that doesn't actually often leave people more sick over the years, needing more medications over the years. We know antidepressants, there's not a single antidepressant anywhere that's ever been documented that works better than food and exercise. But we still prescribe antidepressants to people, we're still prescribing antibiotics daily to people, even though now you're starting to see a shift away from that. Doctors are starting to understand how that's decimated our health. So food service providers as well, like as we talked about, we know that the trust is being lost there. But again, I think it's the savvy people like yourself that are in the room that understand that, but our neighbors, a lot of our family and friends still don't understand that yet. And so it's really up to us to help share that information. Yes, that's it. That one. So, our business model at the Green Moustache, so like I said, 10 years ago I started Richer Health Consulting, which at the time it was doing one-on-one consulting with clients to reverse disease. The very first presentation I gave, I was hired by a municipality to come and speak to their employers during Health and Wellness Week, and it was I just come back from San Diego, I was pumped with all of this knowledge, and I had to put together a presentation, and the presentation was top 10 things you can do to reverse cancer and chronic disease. And I remember thinking, who the hell am I to get up there and talk about this? Like, I just learned this yesterday. And so I got up and I gave a presentation, something like, it went like this: eat organic, eat plant-based, get more sleep, do a little bit of exercise, throw in some meditation. Like, it literally was so basic. And my one big thing was cut out salt, cut out oil, and cut out refined products. And so everybody left the presentation, just like this right now, and people went and actually implemented. They watched the documentaries that I suggest they do, they read the books that I said to do, and people 6 months later started calling me back and saying, hey, I used to suffer from migraines once a week and I haven't had a migraine in 6 months, the first time in my entire life. Another woman stopped me in a parking lot and said, she was about in her 60s, and she said, I have to tell you something, I have to tell you something. And I didn't know who she was because there was quite a lot of people in that group. And she said, I'm off all my hormone replacement therapy drugs. And I was like, really, who are you? And I remember being in the grocery store being like, I'm just trying to get my kids and my groceries, and so that was the beginning of Richer Health. And then 5 years went by, and the number one thing that I saw is that every single one of my clients said, well, we can't eat out anywhere. It's really restrictive because I want to socialize and I want to be part of the community, but there's not a single restaurant that I can eat out at. And so that was when I decided to. I used to wake up at 5 in the morning, I was pregnant, I was juicing in my apartment, and I would bring like liters of juice to restaurants in Whistler, and I'd be like, do you think you can just try and sell this to your customers? And they'd be like, yeah, okay, and they wouldn't ask me about health and food safety stuff. I was just like, yeah, I made it in the, so anyway, they were literally selling juice that I made in my house. And so that was, I guess, my market research, but they would sell out, and they'd say, can you make some more and bring it back? So then I started asking restaurants, I'm like, well, could you just add some salads and some, maybe some organic meals and plant-based meals to your menu? And this was about 7 or 8 years ago, and they're like, nobody will ever buy that stuff. I was like, but they buy the juice. Yeah, but that's a novelty. So I was like, okay, so I had to create the Green Moustache. So from doing Richer Health in this bottom right corner, we've gone on to give a TED Talk, we produced the Eat Real to Heal book, we started the Eat Real to Heal PS I Love You campaign, we have an online course, we just did a webinar yesterday, we had about 260 people that have signed up for our webinars, and from all over the world, which is very exciting. We have a nutrition and detox coaching program, so where we teach people how to be me and go out there and work with clients. So we're really trying to amp it up. That's where Richer Health has come over the last 10 years, plus grew into the restaurants 5 years ago. So we created the first one in Whistler, and then a year later we opened up one in Vancouver, Kitsilano, and then we opened up a third in Whistler and one in Squamish simultaneously. We have one in Edmonton, one on the North Shore that Andre manages. Emily's is opening up soon, and then we have Jillian who's opening one up in not Edgemont, sorry, Port Moody for Emlyn, and then Edgemont Village will be next on the list. So we moved into franchising. We did that again because we recognized that we needed health hubs in the world that were going to serve clean, healthy food. So that's happening. Next week, Jeff and I are going to decide if we're going to award a franchise deal to this fantastic gentleman from New York City who's been coming to Whistler for the last 3 years begging for a franchise. So we're talking about that to see if we should go that route. So we have lots of exciting things in the works for the Green Moustache. We do a lot of food catering as well. So we have a contract with one of the spas in Whistler, and that's a significant contract. And so our next thing is to move into Vancouver with the commissary so we can support and launch our vending machine program. We launched one vending machine as a pilot in the Whistler Rec Center, and I know when I say vending machines, some of you are like, what? Vending machine, you package your food, and yes, it does come in a package because it's the only way to hold the food, but it's 100% compostable packaging, but it's fresh. It's exactly the same food that we make in our restaurants, and we supply the vending machine every single morning, fresh, and then we pull it out at night. And that's what we want to do, is open up about 20 to 30 vending machines and put them in universities, schools, hospitals, offices in Vancouver, rec centers, libraries. So that's one of our future projects as well that we have on the go. And I think I've talked about everything there, the projects that we have. Yeah, so somebody said that we are the little engine that could. So we are just like constantly chugging along, trying to meet our clients' needs, the community's needs with the projects that we offer. And so far, so good. So this is our addressable market. One of the really important things to know, if you've never been pitched to before, this is a long version of a pitch. Often some pitches are 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but we're trying to give you as much information as possible. But there's a huge addressable market. The organic food industry is massive in Canada. In fact, they say it's the fastest growing industry, even faster than the car industry, faster than any other industry up there. So, but as far as quick service restaurants, it's a $30 billion industry that we're playing in, which is very exciting. And so far, we've accessed just a little tiny nugget of it. And so we have the potential there to really go big with the Green Moustache. At the same time, though, keeping our offerings quite local. All of our restaurants source from local organic farmers when the food is in season. We don't require every single location to purchase from the same farm, because that would be silly for our Edmonton store to source from our Canadian BC farms. So we encourage our locations to actually seek out the organic farmers in their community and then supply the majority of their inventory with that when it's in season. But that's really important that it is 100% organic at all times. So it is an amazing place to be in. We are one of the very, very, very few restaurants across Canada that are 100% organic as well. Gluten-free, vegan, locally sourced, non-GMO foods as well are critical in this industry, and more restaurants need to make the shift. We're already there. That's what we were from the very beginning. And actually, it's the medical side are these chronic diseases that are actually driving the need for non-GMO, gluten-free, and vegan as well. So in one sense, it's terrible that we have this disease epidemic. For us, it's actually kind of good, because a lot of our clients come to us saying, it's the only place I can eat. I can't eat anywhere else. I know, exactly. Lots of our customers are like that. I was just going to mention at the bottom of the slide there, so we were in China. I was in China in May. I was invited to go there and meet with the Center for Chronic Disease Control and Health China, actually. And I met with about 200 plus physicians and healthcare workers, as well as taught to over 200 physicians who wanted to know about plant-based medicine, so that was exciting. They have 150 million people right now that have diabetes. Okay, that's huge, and heart disease as well. So it's not just Canada who's affected, but all of these other countries. But what we're seeing is a lot of these governments in different countries are actually taking the lead by actually saying, you know what, we need to go plant-based, because especially in China, the big reasons for them asking for me going over there was because of the fact that economically they cannot no longer sustain a healthcare system that's based on a plant-based or meat-based diet. they will not be able to afford all the expenditures that come along when trying to deal with those diseases. So where do we fit? Okay, it's always good to know who the competitors are. So some people would say that we don't really have any competitors, like a lot of businesses like to say that, but that's not true. Everybody's got a competitor. Technically, we're in the food space, so every food establishment is a competitor. But really, at the end of the day, what we're seeing is a lot of places are adopting plant-based diet or plant-based menu items, so one or two of them. McDonald's, you can go there and get a salad or a wrap now that doesn't have meat. You can go to Tim Hortons, and it's really hard to get something without meat, but you can get it. You have to ask them to take the meat out. Subway is considered healthy, if you consider, yes. But yes, to some people, it's considered healthy. Starbucks now has these amazing packages of like vegetables and fruit that you can get, but for some reason, the apples don't go brown, even though they're cut and in the package, and I don't understand how that happens. And I even asked them, and the staff was like, I don't know either, right? I was like, chemical. So, Booster Juice, I remember going to Booster Juice one day, and they had this great advertisement that said, we use like 77,000 pounds of strawberries a year. And I went up to them and I said, are they organic strawberries or are they conventional? And they're like, well, they're conventional. And I was like, so how many pounds of pesticides and insecticides does that translate to? And I was non-confrontational, and the person was like, oh my gosh, that's a really good point. And I was like, yes. So you might not want to advertise that, especially because strawberries are one of the foods that you should not be eating unless they are organic. Fresh meat, chopped leaf. Earl's definitely has a lot of more options. They're definitely higher priced. They're tasty. They're still smothered in salt, in processed oils and sugars. And then, Whole Foods. We all know about Whole Foods. You can decide if it's healthy or not, considering that the majority of the store is packaged and processed. And then, of course, we have the green Moustache. And we kind of fall in the middle with price range. We see other salads, coming in at $18 in some restaurants, and ours come in at $12.95. But they're actually, if you put it on a plate, they're actually the size of 2 salads. So we actually provide quite a large quantity of food. And again, always organic and unprocessed. So this is where what we've done. I've sort of run through what we've done over the last 5 years since opening the first green Moustache. But it came from Richer Health first, and our first location. We've been winning Best Vegetarian Restaurant in Whistler for the past 5 years. We only have one other competitor, but we're still winning. But we're also being measured up against the Earls and the Milestones and everything there. We opened 2 locations in 2014. And our sales have been jumping, so 385,000 to 930,000 the next year, 1.3 million the next year. We did 1.4 million last year, and we're hoping you're going to see the numbers next, but this next year is going to be quite considerable. We pitched on Dragon's Den, and a lot of people, I don't know if you've seen it, on the show. We took the deal because that was just smart marketing, but behind the show we didn't take the money, just in case you're curious. And so, which is very common, most shows don't close on a deal. And we really did it for the marketing purposes. It's the whole reason why we went and did that. We, like I said, done a TED Talk, produced a book, produced an online course. We now have an incredible app, which I hope that everybody has on their phone. It's a beautiful app. Jeff took the lead on making all of that come to fruition. And so you can even order ahead. You can even put the time in, I believe, when you're going to pick up your food as well, which is kind of nice. And that's been working well with the loyalty program. And like I said, we have our vending machine program. So with one vending machine now that we want to launch to 30. So our competitor in the States, in the vending machine world, I've been following them from when they had one vending machine. And can anybody guess how many vending machines they have now? Not 2. How many? Oh, I wish they had 1,000. 183 vending machines. Isn't that incredible? I know, I love it. So we want to follow in their footsteps. I wish I could take the credit and say it was my brilliant idea to have fresh food vending machines, but it's not. Oh, and we opened a wellness center.
Who are the vending machines?
They're called Farmer's Bridge.
Based out of Chicago. They're expanding out of Chicago. They're almost exclusively in Chicago, and they have 189
And so I forgot to mention as well that before our companies were all separate, so we had Richer Health Consulting, we had Green Moustache Franchising. We do have a nonprofit as well that we launched. You can invest in a nonprofit, so we're actually a registered charity, but it is the arm of the Green Moustache, and that's where we provide education and consulting services and programming in schools and in Indigenous communities as well. So all of last year we worked and talked about plant-based medicine in the Squamish Nation community, and we did after-school programs with the elementary school students, with the high school students, and with the elders, and the elders totally got it. They were like, yes, this is how we've always eaten, and the kids were like, is it safe to eat carrots? But the kids would be like devouring the food. We'd do the cooking with them, they would eat it. It was quite brilliant. And so, yeah, we have the nonprofit, and then we opened up a wellness center. And the reason we did that is because one of the biggest things is that a lot of people don't know how to cook. And they don't know how to use food as medicine, and we can tell them how to do it, but we decided we needed to show them how to do it. And unfortunately, all the other places you can go to are in the States or in Europe, where you can learn how to use food as medicine to reverse disease. So we opened up a wellness center in Pemberton, in Suite 12, and it's been fantastic. We've had sold out retreats since we opened, and we're hoping to turn it into a 365-day center where people can come at all times and learn how to reverse their diseases using food. So I think that's everything. I think that's all. That's all for today, folks. And then the next slide is, so this is just our leadership team. So a lot of people, it's funny, they stop me and they're like, oh my gosh, how do you do it all? And I'm like, I don't do it all. That would be crazy. So I founded the Green Moustache, and my husband was teaching full-time at the time, and then he left 2 years later and came to join the company, which I really needed him to do. That's when we had 2 restaurants. And then we brought on Jeff last year as an investor or partner and as our chief strategic officer. But we also have an additional 6 team members. Right now, our manager that manages our 2 locations is one of them. We have Nicole, right there. Okay, there's Nicole. She heads up our marketing department, so it is a department of 1, but it is Nicole that does all of that. Then we have our operations, which is managed by Haley, who's been with us for 2.5 years. And we have Steffi, who manages all of the Richer Health, education, social media, outreach, marketing. We have Mary Lynn, who manages our retreat center. And then we just brought on Becky, who's now managing all of our digital online tech for our online program as well. So we're a big team. So now you will never ever say, how do I do it all? Because I could never, it would be these great people. We wouldn't be doing everything that we're doing. We also have an advisory board, and our advisory board, I don't know if any of you know Deanna Embry. She had an incredible business called Be Fresh, and she sold to Spud, and she ran that for 10 years. And Jeff Shire, we have Jack Compton, who's now the new mayor of Whistler, and Lori Grant, who she teaches in international business management out of BCIT, and all of them have run businesses successfully, and they're our advisory board. So again, we don't do it alone, we defer to them to make our really awesome, amazing, wise decisions to move forward with the work. I think that's the end for me. I think you guys have heard me talk enough.
Thanks, Linda. So I'm just going to cover off a few of the kind of investment and business elements of the business. All this information is available online, but it's always nice to hear it in person. And after this, we're going to have an opportunity for questions. And Andre, can you start pulling the desserts out? All right, it's coming soon. All right, so as Nicolette mentioned, that there are a few different elements to the company. And this is the structure. So when you look online, you'll see you're actually investing in Green Moustache Holdings, which is a holding company, which owns the rest of the company. So there's 4 companies here. There's the corporate stores. That's where the vending machine, the commissary kitchen one will go. Those are ones that our team that Nicolette described actually runs. There's a franchising operation, which is a licensing company. So that's the companies that train and they collect royalties from the franchisees, such as that one. Very soon, as of 2 weeks from now, week and a half. Then we have the Richer Health Retreat Center, which is self-explanatory, and Richer Health Consulting, which was the original company that I founded, and the Sea to Sky Drivers. So that's how these fit in. So in terms of the plans, so this is what we have put in place, and this is the business case. This is what's built into all the financials. So you'll see at the top that I'm going to start with opening up the commissary kitchen here in Vancouver and opening up 10 vending machines. That in itself, everything is a projection. This is looking into the future. So that business by itself is expected to be profitable, standalone, and can run itself for a long period of time. That commissary kitchen sets us up, to be able to we believe to be successful in responding to RFPs to get into hospitals. I spoke with the head of procurement yesterday. Again, he suggests that the RFP that we're looking for is coming out in April. So we hope to have our commissary kitchen just ready right at that time. We're in a very good position to win some of those bids. Getting into hospitals is a dream of ours. It is, we think, a wonderful way to impact the health of all Canadians, and that's a key part of this plan. We expect to, once we get into 1 or 2 hospitals, prove out the model after a couple of years, we expect to get quite many. But what you can see from the figures here, you can see exactly how many we're assuming within the forecast. So we're assuming 3 hospital kiosks in the first year and a half, and then opening up 2 more each year in the future. We expect to continue to franchise, again, a steady pace of 2 per year, and open up additional vending machines as well. So that basically, all those colored arrows, that's the plan, that's the timing. At the bottom, you can see a couple of important things. These are items that are not. The first item is not assumed in the plan. This is an extra opportunity, such as what Nicolette mentioned of potentially working in the United States. So if we're successful in doing that, that would be over and above what we're forecasting. We're to opportunistically pursue those geographic expansions. And then lastly, and we can get into this. I'm sure you've seen if you read the handouts. Our projection is that we should be in a position in the 4th year of this business plan is to start issuing dividends. That is not a guarantee. That is our projection and our intention. As by that point, we'll be generating a fair bit of cash flow after the 3rd year. And perhaps I should just take a pause and then say that so working with FrontFundr, you've seen the label on a few places. So FrontFundr is the online platform. They are a registered securities dealer. When you're looking at investing, hopefully you're getting your friends and family interested as well. You'll be buying through them. They will validate you that you're a real person. They will make sure that you have read all the information, so you're not being misled. So this is a very regulated portion of the finance industry, like a lot of things are in Canada, which is the reason, frankly, why we have a pretty stable economy. We have a pretty, tight finance arena. So everything I'm saying here is on the web, and we're not going to suggest anything that's not. I just say that as just to be really clear that things are on the up and up, and we're not making up any numbers. So I was to say, oh yeah, we're going to be in 50 countries, and sure thing. We can't say that sort of thing. We're not going to do. So that's the little commercial for regulation. I'll move on from there. So what are we going to do with the money? As you'll see in the notes there, we're looking to raise $1 million, representing 10% of the company. The largest investment will be in the commissary kitchen, the vending machine program. The second, as we're successful with winning proposals getting into hospitals, then we'll buy we'll build up the kiosks. In addition to that, we're making additional investments in marketing and systems, and as well as working capital. So when you open up new locations, you don't make money in the first month. You buy a whole lot of fruit and vegetables. So for the first little while, we need actually working capital to get us through that period. Within this business plan, we're anticipating being cash flow positive on the investment within 18 to 24 months. Now, really critical when you're looking at the investment, you want to look at what are the key drivers of the investment. What's going to be made or break? And in the business of the food business and in the restaurant business, it's volume. So what you can see in the top right of the screen are the volume assumptions in terms of how much do we expect to sell per day in a vending machine. How many online course sales are we going to do? What are we assuming the commissary kitchen will cost us? And also, what's our percentage of food costs? So these are key variables that you can see online that tell you, and you can judge for yourself. What do you think of our assumptions? Right? And we encourage you to do so before you start making investment. The chart on the left is the distribution of revenue. And really, what it says is that at this point in time, it's our corporate stores, which are helping generating most of the revenue. In the future, it'll be the vending machines, the commissary kitchens, and the kiosks. And here's the last chart of any numbers on it. So this is about the valuation. So I mentioned the projection of growth into the future. On the far right, you see the revenue, the cash flow, the net income. Our belief is that by diversifying our revenue with the same basic food, but diversifying our sources of revenue, we're going to be able to adjust to different locations, adjust to different market conditions, and get ourselves some fairly healthy margins from a restaurant perspective. So the valuation, specifically the way the valuation is calculated, is our projection is that we'll earn $1.43 million of net income in the third year of operations. When you look at evaluating companies, you often look at what's the future value of all of the income they'll produce in the future. So that's called a multiplier. So you multiply that by a certain figure. Within the restaurant business right now, the multipliers are between 8 and 17. So we've chosen one toward the bottom end, which is 12. If you multiply the 1.4 times 12, that values the company at $17 million. But that's 3 years from now. So there's risk associated with that, right? There's time, all kinds of things can happen. So we've discounted that value by 20% a year. So if you're investing in like a GIC or something like that, you're going to earn 1% a year, 2% a year. You invest in something, an older stock, you expect 6 to 7, 8% a year. You invest in a newer business like ourselves that's growing, you expect a bigger investment. So that's why we've discounted by 20%. So, and that's how we get to the $10 million valuation. I'm happy to, if anyone's anxious to ask a question now, please go ahead. But I'm happy to chat with anybody after if they have any questions about any of these figures. And that is it for the numbers, and that'll be the end of our presentation. So I'll invite Nicola to come up with me, and we will take any questions you might have.